going to show an application now connecting with the Gateway SDK to a running Fabric to invoke a transaction on a chaincode. The assumption here is that you got as far as this video and have things set up in a dev environment. The chaincode is running and Fabric is running and things are basically working correctly. Okay, the application I'm going to run is this one here. We'll show you how that works in this screen. So we've got the Fabric running bottom right hand corner. I can actually issue some peer commands. We can query that the chaincode is there and is committed, and in the past we've also issued I'll find the command chaincode query, and we can see the metadata has come back. Very useful ping way of doing things. Now when we run that command to start the chaincode, so start Fabric before, we also created a number of other files. I'll just go into the show the directory. So we all, as well as the identities we created, and this was the configuration here in this CFG folder, so this MSP folder is the one that peer CLI commands is using. We also created these identities here of the kind of org1 admin, and also, although the connection profile that was directly used with the old SDKs. The new SDKs don't actually directly load any of these files, but they do contain all the information that you need, and therefore the application just simply reads those files and passes the required stuff to the application. So we have a look over here. This is the application. It's a TypeScript one, so I've done npm install. We can npm and build again just to be certain. And yep, that's all good. So what this application is going to do is connect and issue the metadata transaction as well, hence why it's called ping chaincode. Well, it's an application, it's going to ping the chaincode and see if everything is good and is present. You notice that there is a more app end file. Now the application needs to obviously have information to know where to connect, so we've got a file there with the channel name, the chaincode name, which is the one that was given when we approved it, the connection profile file to pull out all the endpoints necessary. There's way more in there than actually is needed. It's really just one or two things that's needed there. The file that's going to have all the identities in, we need to load where that is, and for this case, because we're doing it in development, we have TLS turned off. Now that file is read by the application, and we'll just run the application now. Hopefully we'll read that file and we should see the output there of the metadata that is the same as the metadata that you saw earlier on. This is the app.ts, the main identity file, sorry, the main application file that's running. Just to show you briefly in here the Gateway SDK calls. The first part of the application is to just get these connection identity information and files and so forth that are needed. We parse out the information we need from the connection profile and pass and create a new gRPC connection for that. We use an additional file here to help with loading those identities, and we get the identity and signer. Now this is where the Gateway SDK starts. So we do issue a connect with the gRPC client we've created, with the identity, with the signer, and some options. We then do a gateway get network based on the channel name and get hold of the chaincode name, contract, and then call the ping. So let's just work backwards and look at the ping function. This is simply an await contract evaluate transaction, all capital Ledger Fabric get metadata, and this is the same string that we saw on the command line earlier. The result comes back as a byte array, which is then sort of decoded with a UTF-8 decoder into a string, and that is the output we saw. Right, let's work just one from the top to show you this load profile function. This is kind of a utility function that could be useful. Really, we're just loading in that big JSON file ready for use later. And it really comes into action here because we need to create a gRPC client ourselves to give to the Gateway SDK. And what we really need is the peer endpoint. That's the only bit of information we need from the file. If we're TLS enabled, we're just creating secure credentials. If we're going to use TLS credentials, we do need two more pieces of information from that file. We need the root certificate, basically from there. We go back to here, so that's loaded the profile, and basically with the peer name and any TLS stuff, we've got the gRPC client connection. The JSON identity, we're just loading the file here, read the file, and we are pulling out the certificates that we need from the file and the private keys. Sometimes there are variations depending on where that file's come from, so there's a bit of logic here just to smudge over all those differences. And we're finally creating the appropriate signer and the appropriate identity to pass back to the Gateway SDK.